I think melon time. Hi, it's Todd here from Todd's Workshop and Todd Cutler, and I am back with...
Matt Easton of Schola Gladiatoria.
Not looking left, because this is another weird weapons, and here it is, Matt.
Oh, yay, it's one of those.
It's definitely one of those.
Oh, gosh.
So what we have got here is a very military, very offensive, very unpleasant flail.
I love that. Funnily enough, I was looking at a manuscript image the other day of one which looked exactly like this. But interestingly, it was being held by a guy in full harness and full armour.
The flail itself, if you can imagine this without the spikes on it, is an agricultural tool. You use it for threshing grain, so peasants use them. So you've got a flexible link here, you've got a short stick and a long stick. And quite simply, it's for bashing the heck out of wheat to separate the grain from the stalks, or barley and rye and so on. This, however, is not that. So the agricultural versions were very often turned into military weapons during times of civil strife, usually involving peasants. So things like the Husite rebellion, peasants' revolt in Sweden and so on. And you can bet Wat Tyler's friends would have had quite a few of these as well in England.
Yeah.
You can take the agricultural version, you can put some studs on it, a few little spikes and things. That's fine. But you can up the ante. And as you just said, they're very useful weapons. We'll come to that. And it means that knights occasionally would have them too. And so this is like a higher status, better made version of a military flail.
And we even find them in treatises, of course. So you've got Palisect Mare, but you've also got Friedel, which was made for Emperor Maximilian. And so not only were they used as military weapons by people like the Hussites, for numerous reasons, I won't just say for economical reasons, probably because they were also quite practical for the Hussites to use in their kind of wagon.
Very well adapted weapon for their fighting. So what Matt's referring to there is the Hussites very famously had effectively armoured wagon trains. They were, if I'm correct, they're sort of the more peasant end of town, and they're attacked by the more knightly end of town.
Yeah, so they were fighting against the Holy Roman Empire, and they found that against large cavalry forces, well, what did they have? Plenty of wagons, and so they developed these special wagons which had, this is Jan Žižka, what's now the Czech Republic, then Bohemia, and they sort of augmented their wagons and turned them into war wagons, so they had probably extra panelling on the sides. They seem to have perhaps used ladder construction in them as well. They had gunners, they used artillery, essentially field artillery, as well as handguns, crossbows and other things. So they had a kind of team in each of these wagons, and then they could use them either in a lager formation to form what they call a wagenberg, what the Germans call a wagenberg, which is essentially a mobile fortification, or they could completely stretch them between two things like a wood and a river, like a mobile castle. And they were famous for using these flails.
One of the reasons for that, I think, because you're on a higher place fighting people which are lower down, to get that reach, and they can hold their shields up, as an example, or arms defensively, or other weapons. These things have a hideous ability to curl around the back of defences.
Yeah, and tactics often develop to fight against what your given enemy is. So you develop certain tactics against the Mongols or certain tactics against the French, where they were fighting primarily German, Northern Holy Roman Empire cavalry. And so if you're on a wagon and you've got lots of horsemen around, well, something like this that you can smack around at passing cavalry is not only can you reach over your wagon with it, or potentially over fortification walls with it, but very good against horses and men on horses as well. So,
well, what I can also attest to with this kind of spiky weapon is it takes very little movement of the weapon or movement of you onto the weapon either way for it to cause a problem.
Yeah.
And they're hideous things to make, these sort of things, because they're always biting you one way or another. But what it means is even that just dangling in your vicinity is enough to cause you a problem. When the guy starts swinging it around, suddenly you have an amplified problem.
Yeah.
And talking of which, I want to go watch you swing this around. So can we go out in the field and have a look at
Let's do it.
what it does?
Yeah.
Hi, we've interrupted the film for another Todd Cutler related interesting fact. And today we have got a 12th century onward quill and dagger. First seen in a church wall painting in about 1080 in Italy, but this simple style of dagger just carries on for hundreds and hundreds of years. Slight little changes on decoration and shape, but basically exactly this. But you will find this dagger and lots of other similar pieces on toddcutler.com. Anyway, back to the film.
It's interesting with this one because you can get the tip moving around without actually moving the shaft very far out of line.
Any of those strikes would be hideous.
Unpleasant, yeah. You can get quite a good swing, but keeping the shaft in front, like that.
Yeah, you're getting quite a snap.
So obviously you can move the whole thing. And do that. Having something around there, even just to feel, might be a good little pro tip, but...
Okay, well, we can mod that. So, right, Matt, I've just put a little cord ring on there.
Yeah.
So it gives you a positive stop for where your hand wants to be.
The reason for that, really, I mean, so obviously there's a degree of safety involved, but that's actually not necessarily the main reason for me. It's because what I'm finding with this weapon is there's a lot of things you can do by moving the hands around on the shaft, and I want to, without seeing, you know, just by feeling, I want to know how much handle I've got, basically. Although it didn't hit me in the hand, I did move my hand up there, and I don't particularly want to get a spike through my hand. We don't have a lot of technical material telling us how to use these things, so this is a lot of experimentation. And what I draw upon is my past experience using pole axes and halberds and things like that. So I'm using it like a pole weapon, but with an articulated head. You've also got that articulation point here where you can, with smaller twisting movements, actually do something that might be quite useful. Yeah. Even if it's not necessarily always to hit, it could even be defending or parrying an incoming thing that's coming at you. So if there was a spear coming at you, for example, you could do this type of motion that's like a circular parry. So it could be quite useful.
A little flick of that into their face.
Yeah.
It's not what they want.
Yeah, and so aside from this sort of hitting or motion by talking the thing around like that, you've also got the basic swing, as I mentioned before, where you keep your hands essentially where they are on the shaft. But of course, you can also slide the hands together, which gives you an accelerating motion as you do that. So it gives you longer reach, but it also gives you greater velocity. But the downside is it's harder to control. But if you have brought the hands close together there, the quick way of getting it back under control is to slide the hand back up. And that's where that's particularly useful, because knowing where you want to stop the hand is really
useful. All right, brilliant. Thank you for those insights. We'll stick his helmet back on him and just sort of see flicking at his helmet, just get a feel for it.
Okay.
So that didn't look like a particularly hard hit from you.
No, I was trying to do it more as a flick. So I was deliberately stopping the shaft so that I left what would be a polearm shaft, like a spear, on line, while just swinging the pendulum through, essentially. I think it was it would have been a fairly unpleasant hit from that end, considering you were just swinging the tip.
I would be interested to see how it interacts with the mail, and I'd like to see the articulation side of it coming over. Would you be able to try and sort of strike here, but with the knuckle, and try and get the head end to come into his back? Because that's one of the horrible features of these weapons.
Okay.
It does. It's right there. It's almost like he reacted to it, isn't it? And his head fell off. I mean, that shows again, if you're doing a block with a shield or a halberd or spear or something like that, it's just curling right over. Interesting. I mean, it's tangling up on it, isn't it? Lovely. Whatever's. Right, let's go look at the footage quickly.
It overshot.
Yeah, a little bit. But again, you've got a long and very offensive piece here.
Yeah. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you very much. But it means that, you know, there are...
I really think it would penetrate more hitting up this end, but I'm obviously going too close with it.
It's a weird weapon, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, I think melon time. Took him off at the neck.
Decapitated.
Yeah.
Well, it looks good like that.
It
doesn't
does. It does.
It
Look
looks
good.
a bit like an explosion.
What do you reckon? One more melon?
Yeah, I'm happy to do another melon. Ah!
Lovely. Not as satisfying as a watermelon.
No, I think I went through the neck.
No, about halfway, I think. But let's have a look. Oh, it was at the neck again.
Oh,
But what a thing.
have we got another one?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll try and get the actual head this time.
Nice.
There we go.
Lovely.
That was middle on
Ouch.
middle, really, wasn't it?
That
Middle of
was. That was. What a thing. Well, devastating on melons, Matt. Got that. Lovely strike in there.
Well, first thing is melons don't hit back, and I think there's a lot to be said about these weapons against resisting opponents, and I think that's, you know, I mentioned about sort of twirling the end to defend against certain things, but you know, we also looked about hitting. I think people always think about hitting with the hitty bit, but as you pointed out, if we make impact up here, that hitty bit swings around and hits them in the back or round the back of a shield, or you know, these sorts of things. And I think those sort of tactical considerations for these weapons are really, really interesting. Of the things we've been looking at recently, I can see why this is the weapon that was the most popular militarily. It makes the most sense.
It strikes me as a very easy weapon to use
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah.
Because from the most simplistic point of view, if you have no skill at all, if you stretch that out towards your opponent and shake the end of it,
Yeah.
a good result happens.
Yeah.
And everything after that is skill. But from base entry level nothingness, just putting that thing close to other people and moving it about does a good job.
Yeah, and you know, we spend a lot of time looking at weird weapons, but that's weird to us. But to a person in the 15th or 16th century, this is their flail. They might have, you know, since they were a kid, they might have been helping out at threshing season, and they might be completely familiar with this as an object.
They may well. And the other thing is, one of the things I always say is people haven't changed. Well, nor have kids. And you can bet that if you've got a kid threshing corn and another kid threshing corn, well, sooner or later, one of them's going to go, oh, yeah, there was like, yeah, peasants revolt, yeah, great, let's have a go. And they're going to start swinging them at each other and playing war and doing whatever. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So actually, there's probably a very base level of understanding of how to use this as a weapon, as well as how to use it as a tool.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's worth saying about this as well is that although that might be the weird bit to us anyway, this is a quarterstaff at the end of the day, isn't it? And so there are a lot of things you can do with this weapon that relate to it just being a pole. So if you ignore, in certain scenarios, if you ignore the end bit, a lot of using a pole weapon is completely sort of familiar to you, you know, the sliding the hands up and down, even using this part defensively as well. You know, if someone came in at you with pikes or whatever, well, at that point you're just parrying with it like you would do with any other pole arm. It's weird, but it's also familiar, and
Yeah,
like I
good
say, I think
points.
it just makes a lot of sense as a weapon.
No, it does. And for me, one of the intriguing things is the way it does curl around, and what you think you're defending against is completely something else.
Yeah.
And I find that a really interesting aspect of this weapon.
And I love it.
Brilliant. So, well, that's it. That's the conclusion of another weird weapon. We've looked at flails before, but I just thought it's time we did it again.
Yeah.
So here we are. But thank you very much for watching. But don't forget, of course, that both Matt and myself have websites that if you like this kind of stuff, you're going to be really interested in what's going on there. We've got Patreon pages, which the support from there really helps with these films as well. And we've also got YouTube channels. Come down, check them out. Not this one, I've got another second one as well for more niche stuff. But either way, between Matt and I, you'll find lots of stuff you're interested in. So, Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we will see you again, and we'll see you again for another weird weapon. Oh, spot of rain. Oh, no, spot of melon juice.
It's raining melon.